always tending to ignore it unduly. Radical empiricism, on the contrary, is fair to both the unity and the disconnection. It finds no reason for treating either as illusory. It allots to each its definite sphere of description, and agrees that there appear to be actual forces at work which tend, as time goes on, to make the unity greater. The conjunctive relation that has given most trouble to philosophy is the co-conscious transition, so to call it, by which one experience passes into another when both belong to the same self. About the facts there is no question. My experiences and your experiences are with each other in various external ways, but mine pass into mine, and yours pass into yours, in a way in which yours and mine never pass into one another. Within each of our personal histories, subject, object, interest, and purpose are continuous, or may be continuous. Footnote. The psychology books of late have described the facts here with approximate adequacy. I may refer to the chapters on the stream of thought and on the self in my own Principles of Psychology, as well as to S. H. Hodgson's Metaphysic of Experience. End footnote. Personal histories are processes of change in time, and the change in itself is one of the things immediately experienced. Change, in this case, means continuous as opposed to discontinuous transition. But continuous transition is one sort of a conjunctive relation, and to be a radical empiricist means to hold fast to this conjunctive relation of all others, for this is the strategic point, the position through which, if a hole be made, all the corruptions of dialectics and all the metaphysical fictions pour into our philosophy. The holding fast to this relation means taking it at its face value, neither less nor more, and to take it at its face value means first of all to take it just as we feel it, and not to confuse ourselves with abstract talk about it, involving words that drive us to invent secondary conceptions in order to neutralize their suggestions and to make our actual experience again seem rationally possible. What I do feel simply, when a later moment of my experience succeeds an earlier one, is that though they are two moments, the transition from the one to the other is continuous. Continuity here is a definite sort of experience, just as definite as the discontinuity experience, which I find it impossible to avoid when I seek to make the transition from an experience of my own to one of yours. In this latter case, I have to get on and off again, to pass from a thing lived to another thing only conceived, and the break is positively experienced and noted. Though the functions exerted by my experience and by yours may be the same, e.g. the same objects known and the same purposes followed, yet the sameness has in this case to be ascertained expressly, and often with difficulty and uncertainty, after the break has been felt, where in passing from one of my own moments to another, the sameness of object and interest is unbroken, and both the earlier and the later experience are of things directly lived. There is no other nature, no other whatness than this absence of break and this sense of continuity in that most intimate of all conjunctive relations, the passing of one experience into another when they belong to the same self. And this whatness is real empirical content, just as the whatness of separation and discontinuity is real content in the contrasted case. Practically to experience one's personal continuum in this living way is to know the originals of the ideas of continuity and of sameness, to know what the words stand for concretely, to own all that they can ever mean. But all experiences have their conditions, and over subtle intellects, thinking about the facts here and asking how they are possible, have ended by substituting a lot of static objects of conception for the direct perceptual experiences. Sameness, they have said, must be a stark numerical identity. It can't run on from next to next. Continuity can't mean mere absence of gap. For if you say two things are in immediate contact, at the contact how can they be two? If, on the other hand, you put a relation of transition between them, That itself is a third thing, and needs to be related or hitched to its terms. An infinite series is involved, and so on. The result is that from difficulty to difficulty, the plain conjunctive experience has been discredited by both schools, the empiricists leaving things permanently disjoined, and the rationalist remedying the looseness by their absolutes or substances, or whatever other fictitious agencies of union they may have employed. Footnote. See the thing and its relations. End footnote. From all which artificiality we can be saved by a couple of simple reflections. First, that conjunctions and separations are, at all events, coordinate phenomena which, if we take experiences at their face value, must be accounted equally real, and second, that if we insist on treating things as really separate, when they are given as continuously joined, invoking, when union is required, transcendental principles to overcome the separateness we have assumed, then we ought to stand ready to perform the converse act. We ought to invoke higher principles of disunion also, to make our merely experienced disjunctions more truly real. Failing this, we ought to let the originally given continuities stand on their own bottom. We have no right to be lopsided or to blow capriciously hot and cold. The first great pitfall from which such a radical standing by experience will save us is an artificial conception of the relations between knower and known. Throughout the history of philosophy, the subject and its object have been treated as absolutely discontinuous entities, and thereupon the presence of the latter to the former, or the apprehension by the former of the latter, has assumed a paradoxical character which all sorts of theories had to be invented to overcome. Representative theories put a mental representation, image, or content into the gap as a sort of intermediary. Common sense theories left the gap untouched, declaring our mind able to clear it by a self-transcending leap. Transcendentalist theories left it impossible to traverse by finite knowers, and brought an absolute in to perform the saltatory act. All the while, in the very bosom of the finite experience, every conjunction required to make the relation intelligible is given in full. Either the knower and the known are 1. The self-same piece of experience taken twice over in different contexts, or they are 2. Two pieces of actual experience belonging to the same subject, with definite tracts of conjunctive transitional experience between them, or 3. The known is a possible experience either of that subject or another, to which the said conjunctive transitions would lead, if sufficiently prolonged. To discuss all the ways in which one experience may function as the knower of another would be incompatible with the limits of this essay. Footnote. For brevity's sake, I altogether omit mention of the type constituted by knowledge of the truth of general propositions. This type has been thoroughly, and so far as I can see, satisfactorily elucidated in Dewey's Studies in Logical Theory. Such propositions are reducible to the S is P form, and the terminus that verifies and fulfills is the SP in combination. Of course, percepts may be involved in the mediating experiences, or in the satisfactoriness of the P in its new position. End footnote. I have just treated of type 1, the kind of knowledge called perception. This is the type of case in which the mind enjoys direct acquaintance with the present object. In the other types, the mind has knowledge about an object not immediately there. Of type 2, the simplest sort of conceptual knowledge, I have given some account in 2 earlier articles. Footnote. On the function of cognition, Mind, Volume 10, 1885, and The Knowing of Things Together, Psychological Review, Volume 2, 1895. These articles are reprinted, the former in full, the latter in part, in The Meaning of Truth. End footnote. Type 3